Takaru was a down bad, useless mofo who was as single as your left sock after laundry day. However, everything changes when he decides to switch to an all-girls school to increase his chances, and he ends up clapping multiple baddies at once.
I'd like to repay you.
It all started on his first day at his new school. Haruko gladly visits him to welcome him to the school, being her childhood friend. Getting to his dorm, she knocks on the door and opens it. Meanwhile, Takaru is trying to wear his pants, and as he tries to prevent her from seeing him like this, he trips over a stack of boxes, which start to fall. In a swift reaction, he quickly tries to prevent them from falling on Haruko, but the idiot gets in a sus position instead with his hand holding her milk jug. As she notices this, she knocks his stupid ass to the ground before properly welcoming him to the school. However, all this bozo can see are the nicely carved out melons before him, which embarrasses her. On the way to school, Haruko asks him why he chose this academy, and the numbskull eagerly replies that it is because the academy has been turned from an all-girls school to a co-ed, which means he can see all kinds of chicks around with different giant sizes, unlike when he was in an only-boys school where he almost became a victim of Diddy's disciples. However, Haruko informs him that this school is quite unusual than he may think, but bro doesn't understand what the heck she means because all he is concerned about is cakes. Haruko soon separates from him, since she is on the student council committee, leaving him to find his way to the opening ceremony venue alone. He gets lost and surprisingly finds two idiots in a heated fight for a teddy bear. Just then, he sees a hottie hanging from the tree with her panties showing, and as the girl tries to cover herself after noticing him, a sword comes flying from the fight scene, cutting the branch she is hanging from. She falls to the ground on Takaru, accidentally kissing him in the process. She quickly sits upright, but this only provides a 4K view of her divide. Noticing the cultured moron, he grabs his collar and threatens to send him to the glorious divide instead, but as she holds him, she shockingly sees a familiar crest on his chest, which startles her. He excuses himself immediately, and as he leaves, she reasons that she has just found the sworn enemy she has been looking for. But Takaru just excitedly runs off, unaware that he just bagged an enemy. Later, during the starting ceremony, the principal begins to address the freshmen about the school's principles, during which she says that they all have to use their elements to fight for the 8 Makins. But Takaru doesn't understand what she is saying because all he intends to do in the school is to clap hard and study hard. The principal then calls for a fighting exhibition, and the girl from earlier, named Himegami, suddenly climbs the stage and challenges him to a fight. He becomes shocked, and Haruko immediately tries to prevent the fight by appealing that he is still a freshman, but the principal replies that he should have prepared himself for this while entering the academy. He reluctantly mounts the stage, and while they prepare to fight, Himegami orders one of her familiars to plant a timed lightning ball into Takaru's heart during the fight, which induces a shock to his heart and unalive him several days later. Meanwhile, Haruko gets worried as she sees Himegami's expression toward the idiot standing afar with a fighting stance he learned on TikTok. The fight soon begins, and they exchange fists for some seconds before Himegami suddenly unleashes her element to attack him. But a strange girl quickly intervenes and blocks the attack with the Makin, which the principal considers one of the 8 originals there are. This leaves everyone wondering who she is, but then the girl collapses into Takaru's arm. As he tries to wake her, she suddenly embraces him, excited to see him, shocking everyone. He wonders how she knows him, and jealous, Haruko asks who the fuck she is, to which she replies that her name is Inaho, Takaru's fiancée. She adds that she will protect him from now on and plants a kiss on his disgusting face. But the fool becomes excited that he can finally get laid for the first time in his lonely life. Later that evening, Haruko visits Takaru, still feeling jealous, but she shockingly finds Inaho in his apartment, making her mad. Inaho defends that the principal granted him permission to live with Takaru since she is his fiancée. Himegami also appears at that moment, and seeing that the room is large enough to contain 3 people, she also says she will move there. Hearing this, Haruko leaves immediately and returns with her luggage, insisting that she will also stay here to keep them in check as the dorm superintendent. This leaves Takaru wondering what the hell is happening on his first day at school. The next morning, Haruko wakes up and decides to check if Takaru is still asleep, only to find Inaho in a sus position with him, making her mad, and she slaps him. Later that morning, he steps out of his room and finds Inaho and Haruko cooking, but bro gets carried away by their bunda because those are the only cakes he wants to eat this morning. Noticing him, Haruko gives him some ice packs to soothe his messed up face and asks him to be well-behaved next time. Bro heads to the bathroom after this, only to find Himegami standing in her birthday suit right before him.
Oh my!
However, he is a man of culture, so he keeps staring like a hormonal jit until Himegami almost fries him alive with lightning. While they later have breakfast, they realize they are late and immediately dash to school, but Takeru falls behind since he has been skipping cardio. The girls get to school before him and manage to pass through the gate, but as Takeru approaches, the school gate almost closes since he is slow as fuck. However, Himegami uses her shikigami to pull him over the gate, saving him. Takeru wonders what that was, and Haruko explains that it's one of Himegami's abilities called invisible, and she happens to be the only one able to do that without a Makin. A few minutes later, Takeru and Inaho enter their class, leaving all the ugly boys jealous of him and wondering if Inaho is really his fiancée. As the class begins, the principal with the extra-large cannons appears and tells the students they need to head to the infirmary to get checked up. Takeru and a co-idiot find this as an opportunity to feed their eyes with the wonders of God's creation, so they excuse themselves from the class and run to a tree for an uncensored view of ditties and Buddhas. As they assess and award points to the girls based on their God-given talents, they feel like this is paradise, but suddenly, they hear Himegami's voice, making Takeru wonder if she is arboreal or something. Cause what the heck is she doing on a tree again? She promises to permanently send them to paradise and then jumps at them, crushing their faces to the ground. However, she lets them go, surprising her shikigami that she could control herself from sending them to an early grave. She replies that it's because she didn't feel the same rage she felt toward Takeru yesterday, and she wonders why, even though the crest on his chest proves that he is surely an enemy. Following that, the checkup to find the student's compatibility with Makin begins, and when it reaches Takeru's turn, he gets carried away by how hot the teacher is. He puts his hand into the machine, but it reads identification impossible, shocking the teacher as this is the first time this has happened since the school's founding. This matter reaches the authorities, and they wonder why this is happening, because he is just one of the three with unidentifiable elements. Inaho reveals that her elements could not be identified either, but the principal replies that hers is still quite understandable since she already had a Makin. However, Takeru's situation is strange. Likewise, the third new girl who has an obviously terrible hairstylist. Just then, Takeru takes the opportunity to advertise his stupidity by asking if his condition is serious, and they all yell at him, stating how serious it is. The principal reveals that this makes him unable to defend himself in combat, but Inaho suggests that he wouldn't need to defend himself if he is a good boy and avoids battle at all costs. Takeru replies that he doesn't want to fight with girls anyway, and the principal grabs his nose, telling him not to underrate the girls in the academy, cause they would so whoop his he would rather prefer to be in Diddy's party. After the meeting, Jen asks Minori, the principal, if Takeru is Sensei's son as his character and eyes are very similar, and she replies yes. Then, they talk about his Makin. Following this, Takeru begins his search for clubs to join, and after much searching and not seeing what fits, he considers joining the photography club. Inaho immediately shows her interest in joining too, and hearing this, Haruko starts thinking of dirty things about Takeru, taking sus photos of Inaho, so she immediately rejects the idea. She suggests he join the Kenkabu instead, leaving him wondering what that is. Haruko reveals to Takeru that she's actually the club's president, and he asks for some time to think it over. As they walk to school together the following day, Takeru is curious about the Kenkabu and asks Haruko for more details. She explains that their role is to support the student council in keeping order among the student body. Just then, a bomboclat named Kengo shows up, overjoyed to learn she's the student council's vice president, and tries to touch her. Thinking that the dude is aiming for her jiggles, Takeru rushes to stop him, but ends up awkwardly grabbing one of them for himself instead. At that moment, they're interrupted by a punch to Takeru's face from a girl named Minaya, who scolds him for being a jerk. Haruko quickly steps in to defend Takeru, claiming it was an accident. So Minaya apologizes, but tells Takeru as she shakes his hands that she dislikes morons who wear glasses but look like nerds. The situation takes a turn when they receive a report of a fight and rush to the scene, discovering Izuki facing off against a tough guy named Kurigasa, who demands that if he wins, she will have to be his girlfriend. Seeing him, Takeru and Kengo silently talk between themselves, speculating that this dude who thinks he is Goku must be that desperate because he is a virgin with no clapping experience. However, Himegami snaps at them, saying he is at least better than them, who only know to edge to OnlyFans models all day. The match begins soon after, with Kurigasa making the first move. Izuki skillfully dodges his attack, leaping into the air and delivering a kick straight to his head. Unfortunately, her strike doesn't faze him because he's got the face of a tank. Kurigasa smirks and reveals the source of his strength is Makin, which he calls Makin Steel Fulminal. He counters with a powerful blow that rips apart Izuki's uniform, exposing her underwear. She becomes angry and demands compensation for her ruined outfit and underwear, but she wins the fight. The crowd watches intently, intrigued by how the battle will play out. Meanwhile, Takaru looks uneasy, and a classmate asks him why, to which he replies that he doesn't feel right about a guy fighting a girl. His peers try to reassure him, pointing out that girls in this world are far stronger than he assumes, but Takaru doesn't fug with that because that's not what he learned from the top G. He decides to step in and stop the fight, but before he can do much, the girls hold him back. However, an unexpected glow begins radiating from his mouth, and he shockingly leaps into the fray to block Kurigasa, just as he prepares to deliver a decisive blow that could have sent Azuki into a 10-year coma. He knocks Takaru down in the process, but this move leaves him vulnerable to Azuki's swift knee strike, knocking him out cold. Feeling victorious for taking down Kurigasa, Azuki's satisfaction quickly turns to embarrassment as she sees her panties entertaining the audience in the air. After shooing away the crowd that had gathered to watch the fight, she thanks Takaru for turning her panties into a sponsored ad. She demands to know why Takaru would interfere in such a reckless manner, but before he can respond, Haruko steps in to chastise him for meddling in a fight without possessing a Makin. Inaho, however, praises Takaru's ability to block Kurigasa's punch, which prompts Haruko to momentarily reflect on how dependable and strong Takaru has always seemed to her. Takaru explains that the outcome should be determined fairly regardless of who's fighting. Haruko acknowledges this sentiment, pointing out that ensuring fairness is the very purpose of the Kenkeibu Club. Inspired by this, Takaru decides to join the club on the spot. Watching from a distance, Himegami is taken aback by the strength Takaru demonstrated earlier, which reminds her of something she had once experienced. Later, Takaru, Kengo, and Inaho visit the Kenkeibu club room to formally declare their intent to join. Their journey takes an unexpected turn when they're brought to a hot spring, so they can all have fun in a naughty kind of way. Amid the steamy atmosphere, the two boys, who cannot control their hormones, almost jizz in their pants upon seeing the different sizes of melons available to them in the club. Just then, a sudden commotion erupts as a wild moon bear appears and charges at them. This turns into a temple run scene immediately, but the girls step up, using their Makin to launch a coordinated counterattack, saving their weak. Afterward, they properly welcome the newbies to the group and introduce themselves as the Makin Ki, leaving Takaru surprised. Following these events, the club members focus on training their new recruits, so their useless can become useful to the team. After an intense day of practice, Takaru is completely worn out, his body aching from the exertion. Seeing his discomfort, Inaho offers to give him a deep tissue massage to help him release some stress in the form of cream. As she starts the massage, Haruko, watching from a distance, grows visibly envious. Unable to suppress her jealousy any longer, she decides to join in so she can have a feel of him. Meanwhile, Himegami observes the scene from outside, puzzled by the fact that she can't seem to sense Takaru's power at the moment. Intrigued and suspicious, she reasons that she needs to understand the source of his power to really know whether he's an ally or an enemy. However, she gets pissed as usual and barges into the room, startling everyone as she steps on Takaru's back mid-massage. This shocks Takaru, but the idiot has to bear with whatever she does because talking can lead him to a glorious exit. Out of the blue, Himegami suddenly asks Takaru to go out on a date with her tomorrow, shocking him. The next day, Takaru waits at the designated spot, confused about why she invited him out, especially given her usual hostility toward him. Soon enough, she shows up and informs him that he'll be accompanying her on a shopping trip, during which he will be her lackey for the day, responsible for carrying all her purchases. Meanwhile, Haruko and her fellow idiots decide to tail Takaru and Himegami, curious to see if anything suspicious happens during their shopping trip. After some time browsing, with Takaru playing the role of a pack mule, Himegami strolls into a bikini store to check out some daring outfits. She soon slips into a changing room to try on a few bikinis, while Takaru struggles to hold onto her growing pile of shopping bags as if his life depends on it. Inside the changing room, Himegami is struck by the thought that Takaru's scent is so similar to her brother's. Meanwhile, Takaru's hands start to go numb from the weight, and he stumbles, losing his balance. This grants him a sneak peek into Himegami's exclusive content, but the angry bird delivers a swift and merciless stomp to his sorry face. Later, at a restaurant, the two are surprised to see Azuki working as a maid, spotting Takaru, the very guy who gave her plot-free publicity earlier. Azuki's anger flares up, making Takaru realize that today's lunch will not be digested properly. She soon approaches with a pie, but when Takaru spots it, he comments that he doesn't like green peas, and Azuki tells him that since he is picky, she will also give him the liberty to pick how he wants to die. Bro becomes scared immediately and tells her it was just a prank for his YouTube content. After the meal, Takaru and Himegami leave the restaurant and get into a conversation. Takaru tries to rizz her up, but Himegami quickly snaps back to reality, reminding herself of her original goal. She immediately grabs his shirt and demands to see his chest, determined to examine a mysterious mark she's been thinking about. Takaru, confused and alarmed, tries to stop her, but their interaction is interrupted by three fools who come charging in, hopelessly simping over Himegami. But Himegami hates idiots so much that she summons her Shikigamas to dump them into the nearby river. Just then, another fool shows up and insists on challenging her to a fight. Without hesitation, he activates his Mockin Blade Snake and charges forward, but she effortlessly evades his attack. Frustrated, he launches a second strike that sends her tumbling into a nearby river. Takeru leaps in to rescue her, but ends up falling in as well, accidentally kissing her in the process. As the attacker assumes victory, Takeru pulls off a move that will make Bruce Lee consider being his disciple, landing gracefully on the ground. Without missing a beat, he rushes at the guy and delivers a powerful kick, sending him hurtling through the air. The attacker retaliates with his blades, but suddenly, a glowing crest materializes on Takeru's chest, crackling with electricity. Himegami recognizes the power instantly, deeming it as the same as her brother's. She calls it the convergence of the soul, Blood Pointer. With his newfound strength, Takeru launches a counterattack, smashing the opponent into a tree. However, just as quickly as it appeared, his power fades, leaving Takeru wondering what just happened, like he just suffered a memory glitch. He asks Himegami if he did something foolish again, and she calmly reassures him, saying he saved her, but then rewards him with her saliva in his mouth, shocking everyone. Following this, Haruko grows envious of how the other girls seem to get along effortlessly with Takeru, unlike her. Frustrated and insecure, she starts acting cold toward him and serves him a box of food full of green peas. Takeru is surprised and confronts her about it, but she snaps, calling him ungrateful and telling him to start cooking his own meals. She takes the bento box, and as she turns to leave, he tries to stop her, only to accidentally tug on her skirt.
Perfect!
Leaving her humiliated in front of her juniors. But Minaya never misses an opportunity to hit this dude's paper bag face. Takeru scrambles to explain that it was an accident, pleading with Haruko to confirm his innocence, but she furiously tells him not to address her so casually anymore, leaving him stunned. Later, while Bro wonders what to eat now since he has no food and is broke like you, Inabo shows up and rambles on with some news a hungry man will not bother to hear. The Kenkebu Club convenes after this, and the student council president briefs them on a string of violent incidents at school. Victims have reportedly lost all memory of the events. With no leads on the perpetrator or witnesses, the president assigns Takeru and Minaya to investigate further. Before they start, Minaya bluntly tells Takeru how much she hates him in his face, explaining she's only working with him because she has no choice. This makes Takeru wonder why he looks so much like an ape than his parents. Later, while Minaya reviews the minimal information they'd gathered, Takeru's growling stomach becomes a distraction, and being irritated, she reluctantly hands him a snack. Meanwhile, as he eats, Minaya reflects on a time when she admired Haruko's strength and character, which has made her respect her since then. However, the shameless fool finishes the snack and asks if she brought anything to drink. Mania gets mad and kicks his telling him to go drink his urine. While taking a moment to drink water, he reasons that he is being treated like a pile of and becomes determined to prove that he is rather only a piece of trash. He then tries to call the Kenkebu Club to report the situation, but his attention is abruptly captured by a rough girl who claims to know the culprit they're investigating. Before he can react, she learns his name and activates her Mockin, creating a web-like structure on the ground that immobilizes him completely. Minaya quickly intervenes and launches an attack, but the girl skillfully evades it. Undeterred, she uses her Mockin to trap Minaya, as well. After discovering her name, she starts to mock them and remarks that she had hoped to face the higher-ranking members of the Kenkebu, not lame like them. Takeru instinctively reaches for his phone to call for backup, but Minaya sharply warns him against it, insisting that they must handle the situation themselves as part of their mission. Meanwhile, back at the Kenkebu clubroom, the team grows concerned when they notice the pair hasn't checked in. Due to this, Haruko immediately heads out to check what is happening. The girl demands that Minaya and Takeru call for reinforcements, or she will leave their faces damaged beyond medical repairs. Despite the threat, Minaya refuses to chicken out, saying she will prove that she is not a weakling. Just then, the strange girl shuts her stinky mouth with her Mockin, unleashing a bright and powerful explosion. Takeru sees this from afar and immediately calls on Kimi to give her a lift to the location with her Mockin. Haruko makes an MCA entrance, catching the attention of the crazy who immediately tries to use her Mockin to pin Haruko to the ground too. However, Haruko resists the attack with ease, surprising her. Haruko then questions her motives, but the girl appears to have a hazy recollection of her actions. However, she reveals that since the Mockin Key higher-ups wouldn't easily grant a battle request, she devised a scheme to draw them out instead. Enraged by the harm done to her juniors, Haruko activates her Mockin, overpowering the girl in an instant. Realizing Haruko wields the most powerful of the 8 Makins that exist, The girl challenges her to draw her sword and settle the fight once and for all, but Haruko dismisses her, stating that her weapon only unlocks based on the intensity of both her emotions and her opponent's strength, which means she can't use her Makin here, cause her opponent is too weak.
Emotional damage!
Insulted by the comment, the girl charges at Haruko, only to have her Makin shattered in a single strike. The blow not only disables her weapon, but also knocks her unconscious. After witnessing the immense power of Haruko's Makin, Takeru expresses his admiration and asks her to train him, which immediately reminds Haruko of how they used to train together as kids, and she eagerly agrees. Meanwhile, an unidentified man reports the incident to an unfamiliar girl, who is shocked that Haruko didn't even need to unsheath her sword to win the fight. Realizing the danger Haruko poses, they decide to lay low for the time being. On a certain rainy day, Inaho gets engrossed in her thoughts of when she and Takeru was young. Takeru shows up in her face suddenly, calling back her attention and tells her the guys need to change. As she heads out, she tells Takeru that it was rainy that day too, but he doesn't understand what she means since he can't remember jack. During the crystal ball class, they all practice how to maintain their concentration, but Takeru keeps getting distracted since he is suffering from severe ADHD. He gets talking about the strange girl from the other day with his friend, and they are amazed that she couldn't remember anything she did as her memory had been wiped out by a third party, just like the other victims in the past. Just then, Minori smacks their heads for talking in class and says this class is an important foundation for their fighting, because knowing how to use their elements is more important than using the Makin itself. She offers to demonstrate it to them and calls Kurigase out. However, the egomaniac replies that Minori better watch her steps or she will get clapped. Minori tells him to worry for himself and then takes a powerful stance, which allows the proper flow of her element while explaining the technique to the class. As the duel begins, she immediately charges at Kurigase and knocks him off in one hit, shocking him. Later that day, Takeru and Inaho head to the groceries, and on their way back, she can't stop thinking about their time together when they were younger. Just then, the idiot suddenly tells her he has been feeling hot and can't hold it back any longer, intriguing her. She thinks he wants to kiss her, but is disappointed when he suddenly gives her his load and runs off to use the loo. After he returns, they sit under a shed because of the heavy rain, and as they talk, Inaho mentions it raining that day again, but Takeru is still clueless as ever. He tells her to give him a hint so he can remember, but no matter than she gives, his brain fails to fetch up the data, making her sad. He then tells her to remind him, but she says she cannot because it would be boring that way. A few moments later, he asks them to get going, but she tells him to go ahead, because she would like to be alone. Takeru takes his leave, and Inaho sits there thinking that she wants him to remember because it contains her promise to him. She leaves the shed and heads into a mountain, which Kengo happens to see in a glimpse, making him wonder why she is alone. As Inaho walks across the mountain, she finds a cute meow and carries it. Meanwhile, back at the dorm, Takeru gets concerned that Inaho is not yet back even though it is already late, and Himegami steps in to insult Takeru for being so insensitive to Inaho's feelings. The blockhead realizes his mistake and heads out immediately, but on his way out he meets Kengo, who suddenly asks if Inaho is back. Takeru replies that he is going to look for her, making Kengo pissed that he caused this. He punches Takeru on his face for leaving such a poor girl alone and making her cry. He almost lands another punch, but Takeru won't let a fellow bird-brained like him hit him twice. He runs off immediately while remembering Inaho's words, and he feels sorry for being a jerk. Getting to the mountain, he starts to call her name, and hearing him, the cat leaves Inaho and runs in the direction of his voice immediately. However, as the cat stares at him, a rock suddenly breaks off and heads toward the cat, shocking Takeru. Reacting swiftly, he runs toward the cat immediately and uses the same technique Minori had explained to them, saving the cat just in time. Some other rocks immediately break off again as though they are desperate for a victim, and almost smash the savior and the saved, but Inaho intervenes with her Makin, shattering the rocks. Takeru gives Inaho a piggyback ride as they head back, and she thinks about the promise she made to him to become his wife when they grow up and the promise he made to get stronger and protect her. Takeru apologizes for not remembering the promise and tells her to wait a little longer. He then tells her he will get stronger one day so he can protect her. She feels emotional as she hears this, realizing that deep inside, he hasn't forgotten what he said to her back then. Several weeks later, Jen rushes to meet Haruko and Kengo, eager to find out where Takeru is. However, he's shocked to realize the person they're dragging along the ground, beaten to a pulp, is none other than Takeru himself. Confused, Jen asks what happened. Haruko and Kengo explain that the idiot was trying to separate two fighters and accidentally popped their balloons while at it, causing the two girls to beat him blue-black. After that, Jen pulls out a box, announcing they finally managed to get him a Makin. But before he can explain further, something catches his eye. A helicopter hovering over the academy, with a group of individuals preparing to descend. Seeing this, he becomes shocked and runs off immediately. Meanwhile, several girls step out of the helicopter, and seeing them from her office, Minori wonders who they are. Suddenly, an ugly buffoon dressed like a captain opens the door to her office and makes a gesture that announces the arrival of an idiot. Upon recognizing him as Akaya, Minori slams the door in his face, demanding to know why he is there. Unbothered, Akaya introduces the girls from the helicopter, revealing that they are transfer students. Minori is shocked, but Akaya further elaborates that the girls are maidens called Venus. However, Minori doesn't give a damn about some cutting straight to the point and demanding to know why he's really there. Akaya then divulges that Kamigari suspects someone at the academy is plotting to revive the Yamato Norochi. Minori bursts into laughter as she hears this, saying she never knew someone that intelligent could believe in some myth. Akaya goes on to explain that the Kamigari is an organization that wields the power of Makin and Element to support the nation from the shadows. He further elaborates that in ancient times when gods ruled the world, the Kamigari were initially a combat group of individuals who opposed the rule of the gods. With such a history, he confidently asserts that any speculation they make should be taken seriously. Jen, accompanied by 2 other teachers, confronts Akaya with anger, demanding to know why he is there. However, Akaya snubs his leaving alongside the student council president to meet the Kenkebu. After he leaves, Jen reveals that Akaya was once part of the original generation of Makin Ki along with them, surprising the others. Later, the members of Venus introduce themselves in the Kenkebu's clubroom. Despite the introduction, they refuse to recognize the Kenkebu as comrades, stating they will only do so after witnessing their abilities. During the exchange, one of the Venus members, Yan, insults the Kenkebu, provoking Izuki. Furious, she challenges Yan to settle the matter over a battle, and Yan agrees without hesitation. But since fighting is prohibited among the Kenkebu, they decide to compete in sports instead. The volleyball match kicks off with Izuki serving the ball, but Dimitra, one of the Venus girls, swiftly counters using her element, knocking Haruko to the ground. Frustrated, Haruko declares that while she initially saw the game as a joke, things have escalated, and as the Kenkebu president, she vows to give it her all to defeat them. The game intensifies as both teams exchange points, eventually tying at 14, and with just 2 points left to determine the winner, the players become even more aggressive. The Venus had challenged that if they lost, they'd join the Makin Ki. However, if they won, the Makin Ki would have to close up for the rest of the semester. As the match progresses, Yan delivers a devastating serve that damages part of the court. In response, Kimi sets the ball, and with Haruko and Izuki's combined strength, they unleash a powerful shot that sends Yan crashing into the wall, leaving her furious. Dimitra also gets very angry and unleashes the full power of her Makin. Haruko, in response, summons Heaven's Gate and prepares for a defensive stance. Dimitra launches an attack, which Haruko counters with her Makin, resulting in a massive explosion. Takeru, acting on instinct, jumps in to defuse the situation and ends up saving Syria, one of the Venus players. Syria is grateful and tells him she has a thing for ugly guys like him. Acknowledging Takeru's intervention, Dimitra expresses gratitude for saving her teammate and apologizes for pushing things too far. In the aftermath, both teams recognize each other's strengths. Although the match ends without a definitive winner, the Venus decides to join the Makin Ki. The next day, the teacher introduces Syria to the class, and the room is immediately stunned when they realize that she is a well-known idol. Syria spots Takeru and eagerly jumps at him, thrilled to discover they're in the same class. However, Inoho quickly steps in, claiming to be Takeru's fiancé. But she realizes that she has been in Delulu when Syria asks some tough questions about her supposed relationship with Takeru. Afterward, Syria leaves, and the Ugly Boys Association of the class pounce on him for bagging all the pretty girls to himself alone. Later, Syria talks to her colleagues about her growing crush on Takeru. When they ask her what her plans are, she admits she wants to go on a date with him, but is concerned about the other girls crowding around him. Her friends reassure her, promising to help clear the way so she can have some uninterrupted time with him. They then discuss their plan to handle the competition, with a particular focus on Inoho, the glutton, whom they intend to deceive using her favorite snacks. The following day, Takeru notices Kengo looking downcast and asks what's troubling him. Kengo laments that no girl has shown any interest in him since starting school, which makes him wonder what he's doing wrong since Takeru, who has a scary face, seems to be gaining attention. As they talk, Takeru spots a love letter on his desk and quickly hides it, before Kengo considers hugging the ground because of his miserable life. During lunch, Takeru goes to the restroom to read the letter, feeling excited at receiving a love confession for the first time. However, he is unaware that Kengo has secretly followed him and is eavesdropping. Kengo rushes to inform the girls about the letter, but they're skeptical because someone as ugly as Takeru shouldn't be receiving such a letter, After school, Inao realizes Takaru is missing and wonders where he could have gone. Meanwhile, Kengo, who knows his whereabouts, gets upset and jealous since he is going to see the chick who wrote him the love letter. While searching for him, Inao becomes distracted by 2 bags of snacks placed in her path, just as the Venus girls expected. She then stumbles upon a doll of Takaru, which was intentionally left there to deceive her, and she falls for it, because she is the dumbest in the history of anime characters. Meanwhile, Takaru is caught off guard when he discovers that the mysterious letter came from Syria. She takes him out for an impromptu stroll around the city, enjoying the time together. However, after their spontaneous date, she leads him to a creepy building where she suddenly vanishes, leaving him alone in a dark room, making him think he has been stolen. Elsewhere at the school, Himegami and Haruko encounter a pile of chairs set up to block their path to Takaru. Himegami senses someone watching them, and Yen appears, impressed that she was detected despite hiding so well. Suddenly, a seat appears underneath Takaru, forcing him to sit and restraining him. Syria appears and asks if he's ready because she is about to spice things up. Meanwhile, Haruko, carrying Takaru's doll on her back, wonders why he's not responding.
Wait a minute! Who are you?
She scolds Syria and calls her a disgrace to womanhood for not recognizing that she's carrying a doll. Yan, grinning mischievously, announces it's already too late, but she's shocked when she notices Himegami with her plan outline, wondering how she got hold of it. The group soon realizes that Takaru is trapped in a sus room and rushes to save him before Takaru gets violated. When they arrive, they discover Syria only intends to give him a special performance. That night, as Takaru lies in bed, he wonders why he didn't fall for Syria, even though she's got big pillows and is paying as fuck. A few days later, the boys decide to confront the student council to challenge the rule prohibiting boys and girls from taking swimming lessons together. This rule would block the boys from seeing the girls' plot, which they aren't willing to accept. To resolve the issue, they propose a water riding competition where the outcome will determine whether the rule stands. The student council agrees and preparations for the contest begin the following day. The game's rules are simple. Each participant wears a headband, and anyone who loses their band or falls into the water is eliminated. As the match starts, the boys execute their first plan. Takaru targets Inaho, hoping to exploit her soft spot for him. However, she surprises him by countering his move effortlessly. Takaru quickly switches tactics, whispering in her ears that she is getting fatter, which flusters her enough for him to snatch her headband. With Inaho out, Himegami steps in, attacking him with her Shikigami powers. Takaru holds his ground but tries to unsettle her by telling her he doesn't know which is flatter between his chest and hers. This makes her mad, and she retaliates with a lightning strike, knocking one of the boys into the water. The battle continues with both sides cooking each other one by one, and as the match reaches its climax, the girls launch a final offensive. During this charge, Demetra senses the presence of someone approaching and momentarily freezes, throwing Syria off her rhythm. Takaru seizes the opportunity, immediately grabs Syria with her heavenly treasures pressing against him, and removes her headband, securing victory for the boys. Later, Syria confronts Demetra about her sudden hesitation. Demetra reveals that the final member of their team has arrived, signaling that it's time to begin their true mission, investigating the Academy's students and capturing their target. The following day at school, Takaru and Kengo are relaxing on the school field when Takaru's attention is drawn to a stunning silver-haired girl sitting by the window and immediately points her out to Kengo, leaving the idiot gobsmacked. Elsewhere, while Haruko and her friends suck on their lollipops, the student council president approaches them to inform them about a new student joining their school. She tells Haruko she will be in charge of her since the girl is blind. However, the girl appears behind them and declares that she doesn't need anyone's help, catching everyone off guard. She shocks the group even more by accurately stating the color of their underwear before explaining that while she technically can see, she keeps her eyes closed for reasons they wouldn't understand. Later, Takaru and Kengo, still captivated by the mysterious girl, wander around the school like jobless morons in search of her. During their search, they stumble upon a heated exchange between a guy with a Karen haircut and a girl named Odo Hime. The argument escalates, and Odo Hime boldly declares that she'll forgive him if he bends over and licks her feet. But the dude claims he would rather bend over for Diddy in the same cell. He soon notices Takaru and calls him over to be a witness to their fight. Takaru quickly tells Kengo to fetch the disciplinary committee and reluctantly takes on the role of referee. The situation intensifies as the guy activates his Makin and forcibly drags Odo Hime into his wrongdoing, intending to beat her to the point she'd never be able to use the Face ID feature anymore. However, just as he believes he has the upper hand, Odo Hime activates her own Makin and turns him into a puppet. The two stand still for some moments, making Takaru wonder if this is the English or Spanish challenge he's seen on TikTok. Otohime's older brother reveals that his younger sister possesses the ability to create a unique space where she can dominate anyone who steps inside. In a display of her power, she begins to twist her brother's arms and nearly breaks his neck. Seeing this, Takeru feels compelled to step in and be the hero, rushing toward them in an attempt to stop her. This only infuriates Otohime, who turns her abilities on him, causing him immense pain. Takeru, however, soon realizes that it's not the conflict between the girls that bothers him, but his dislike for witnessing someone weak being overpowered. He grows determined and pushes through the pain, surprising Otohime, who wonders how he's able to resist her control. Takeru advances toward her, but she intensifies her power, nearly eliminating him. Just then, a silver-haired girl intervenes, stopping her. Akaina arrives and tells Otohime that she's gone too far, but she snaps at him, insisting that this is none of his concern. She orders him to mind his freaking business, threatening to report him to her grandfather, Kamigari's chief. After she leaves, Takeru praises the silver-haired girl's abilities, and she introduces herself as Minerva. Afterward, the Kenkebu summon Takeru and confront him about his poor academic performance, pointing out that he hasn't managed to pass his exams. They bluntly inform him that the club does not tolerate dumb skulls, warning him that if he fails the upcoming makeup test scheduled for the next day, he'll be shown the door. This leaves Takeru feeling miserable, because the odds are against him as someone with a 2-digit IQ. However, the girls rally around him, with Minerva suggesting a focused study session in the form of a mini training camp. Later, Kengo joins Takeru to help him train, but Takeru struggles to properly harness his element. Frustrated, Kengo asks what else he has passion for since this is clearly not working for him. Determined to prove him wrong, Takeru refuses to give up and dedicates himself to practicing throughout the day and into the night. Finally, his persistence pays off, and he succeeds in controlling his element, triggering a significant surge in the amount of element in that environment. Himegami immediately senses the sudden change from her location and considers investigating. Before she can act, however, she notices that Minerva has already been tailing her and confronts her. To Himegami's surprise, Minerva compliments her invisible Shikigami, something no one else should be able to perceive. Himegami begins to suspect that Minerva might have seen her true form. Minerva confirms this, revealing that she has been ordered to bring Himegami to Kamigari to prevent her presence from destabilizing the seal of Amanohara. Himegami's Shikigami immediately react, launching an attack on Minerva. However, Minerva easily fends them off without much effort. Realizing the extent of Minerva's power, Himegami prepares to confront her, but is caught off guard when Minerva clarifies that she is not there to fight. Instead, Minerva explains that her mission also involves assessing the strength of the Academy students. She mentions that she discovered another student with a similar wave of power to Himegami. Realizing she is referring to Takeru, Himegami demands to know if Minerva intends to take him as well. Minerva replies that she hasn't made a decision yet, as she has only just begun her observations at the academy. The following day, Takeru manages to pass his makeup exam. The Kenkebu commend him for his effort and welcome him to stay with the group, exciting him. A few days later, Gen helps Takeru by integrating his Makin into his body. He mentions choosing this specific one for Takeru, since he doesn't like to fight girls. Takeru is taken aback as the Makin vanishes into his body, and Minori explains that this type of Makin only activates when an opponent uses their own Makin, leaving Takeru more confused, just like you in an algebra class. Seeing that his brain processes information in 2 bytes per second, Gen decides to break it down even further, stating that it is like that because his Makin can cause his opponent's Makins to go berserk. Later, as Takeru heads back to class, he glances at his hand, contemplating when he might need to rely on his new Makin. Then, since he can only use it when his opponent uses a Makin. However, memories of his encounter with Otohime the previous day flood his mind, fueling his resolve to be better prepared for such situations in the future. Meanwhile, the Kenkebu convenes to discuss their upcoming summer training camp plans. As they outline the activities, the Student Council President drops an unexpected announcement, which is that, this year, participants must cover the expenses themselves, unlike previous years when the club sponsored everyone. They don't become sad immediately because they are all a bunch of broke losers trying to make an impact. While brainstorming ways to raise money, they notice the principal putting a banner on the notice board. Curious, they check it out and realize they have just found a way to earn money for the training camp. Excited at the chance, they sign up and start working at a local cafe the next day. Meanwhile, Otohime uses a tech-enhanced spur to spy on the school, as she is curious to find out the true strength of the bozo who resisted her power the previous day. Later, they get talking and one idiot embarrasses Haruko by pulling her clothes and making an exhibition of her milk jugs. She leaves immediately, feeling ashamed, and standing on the balcony later. She wonders what Takeru must be thinking after the scary size she carries on her chest. Suddenly, a mysterious dude clad in armor ambushes her, firing shots from a revolver. Haruko tries to fend off the attack, but his relentless assault proves too much for her to handle. Just when things seem dire, Takeru intervenes, tackling the assailant from behind. He confronts the attacker, calling him out for targeting a woman, but bro doesn't give a shit about a women's rights activist nobody knows. The villain easily overpowers Takeru with sheer physical strength. Desperate, Takeru considers using his newly obtained Makin, but quickly realizes it won't work since his opponent isn't using any Makin, but pure strength. The villain soon knocks Takeru to the ground, and while on the ground, writhing in pain, Takeru's hands begin to glow like he is about to emote. Before the situation spirals further, Azuki makes a dramatic entrance, leaping in and neutralizing the attacker. After subduing him, they remove his helmet, only to discover he is the cafe manager. It turns out he was being manipulated by an external force, which Jen identifies as the Kamigari, shocking Takeru. Meanwhile, Oto Hime observes the result of her experiment and is dissatisfied with how it all turned out, hoping to see Takeru's true strength someday. However, a chick named Kikyo suddenly appears, proposing that she also wants to participate in her plans. The following day, Haruko is abducted, prompting Takeru to begin searching for her. During his search, he encounters Inaho, who hands him a tie clip, claiming it's a protective charm due to a recent incident involving him. She expresses regret for failing in her duty to protect him and abruptly advises him to safeguard Haruko's feelings before running off. Confused but determined, Takeru continues toward class until he's confronted by a girl behaving strangely, as though possessed. She claims responsibility for kidnapping Haruko and orders him to come to the peak of Amanohara alone if he wants to rescue her. Takeru is startled, but becomes even more alarmed when the girl introduces herself as Kikyo from Kamigari. Realizing she is under some kind of control, Takeru wastes no time and rushes to Amanohara. Upon arrival, he meets the real Kikyo, who immediately challenges him to a fight. She demands he give it everything he's got. However, Takeru turns the moment into a podcast-worthy session, asking her the reason why she seeks strength, and she tells him she wants to be mogging all her colleagues. Bro immediately tries to begin a motivational talk to make her change her mind, but she tells him to cut his heroic crap. The fight takes a brutal turn as Kikyo overwhelms Takeru, leaving him battered and sending him crashing into the mountain. The crest of the mountain happens to match the symbol on his chest, triggering a flood of painful memories. He recalls his failure to protect his mother as a child and is haunted by the realization that he's still powerless to save Haruko now. As despair sets in, he remembers his mother's words, which is that true strength should be used to protect others or prevent conflict, not to dominate people. Fueled by these memories, Takeru's anger surges. The crest on the mountain begins to emit a radiant glow, and his body enters a berserk state. The veins of the mountain illuminate as fountains of elements burst out, which Takeru's body absorbs, leaving those around him in shock. Observing the chaos, Imagami summons a Shishikagami since the other two little bros are still on a drip, to investigate what's unfolding on the Amanohara mountain. Meanwhile, Otohime, who is holding Haruko captive, remarks that Takeru's body will collapse if it reaches its limit. Takeru begins to levitate like he just unlocked some cheat skill and heads toward the school with the intent of attacking his friends. Otohime watches in excitement, and her brother speculates that given Amanohara's reaction, Takeru might share a bloodline similar to theirs. However, Haruko strongly disagrees, asserting that Takeru could never be related to their shitty lineage because she has always known him to be a nice guy. This angers Otohime, and she retaliates by inflicting pain on her. Just as things escalate, the Venus Maidens appear, intervening to protect Haruko. They urge her to focus on saving Takeru while they handle the enemies around them. Haruko immediately steps through a multi-dimensional portal leading to the academy. She shows up with her Makin unsheathed, shocking the others since this is the first time she would be wielding her Makin. Haruko charges toward Takeru, who is still absorbing energy from his surroundings to the point of almost imploding. However, she strikes precisely at the tie clip Inaho had gifted him, which instantly calms him and restores him to normal. Relief washes over the group as they celebrate Takeru's return. Then, Kikyo arrives, declaring that she's there to take Takeru by force, claiming he is eligible to join Kamigari. However, Takeru refuses, standing his ground and the other girls rally behind him, ready to fight. Seeing their resolve, Kikyo decides to retreat for now, warning Takeru to master his abilities before they meet again. Why is Takeru so powerful? And what the heck is about his mysterious past? Comment part 2 if you want the next part. If you enjoyed this recap, clap the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're yet to for more plot-filled adventures. If you like anime recaps like this, watch this video right here.